Was there any moments that you woke up one day and you were like, I should have not done this. I should go back to my 9 to 5.
You don't need motivation to do something you love. This is my home. Do you need motivation to go home? I love coming here. A thing with advice. I think advice has been overly commoditized in today's world. People use it as a commodity, no longer as a genuine piece of information. What worked for me may not work for you, and the last thing I would do is to give you advice based on my experience and then it failing for you.
Did the business pivot at any point to something that you changed as per the market conditions?
We have not made a single pivot since conceptualization.
Wow.
This is all premeditated execution.
Hello and welcome to the Social Kandura Business Podcast. My name is Gaurav, and today we're going to be talking with the CEO and founder of Idealz, who goes by the name Jad Toubayly. Let's get into the couch with him and see what it takes to run a business like this. Hey Jad, welcome and thank you so much for joining us on this business podcast. Thank you for taking so much time from your very busy schedule. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. Tell us more about how you actually got started with what the concept of Idealz came across. How did you come up with the name? And you've always been a numbers guy. You work with E&Y. You work with a lot of very good accounting firms when it comes to banking background as well. How did this?
So the idea came in 2015, and that was a time where the word entrepreneurship and startup was buzzing and trending everywhere. I looked at the landscape and there was an obvious digital movement happening in real time, and I wanted to make my move in that space. So I had quite a healthy career in banking for a decade prior to that, and in 2015 I went all in on this business, and it was my mark in the digital movement that was happening around us.
And did you have any concepts or plans of how do you market this? Because it's very regulatory, very strict guidelines on how you can market it. How did you sort of go around that as well? Because it's a very strict place to market these things as well.
So the business is a fusion between online shopping, which has existed since 1994, and raffles. And it is our play on an incentive formula for our shoppers to enjoy. Where they can buy and enjoy some of our products, and our products that we sell are in the fashion and fashion accessory space. And with every item that they buy, they get access or an entry into a raffle where they can win prizes of value. And so it's our own take on how we fuse raffles and online shopping or e-commerce, where we leverage the raffle element as an incentive rather than as a main form of focus. And by doing so, we abide by the very strict guidelines that the country prescribes us to.
And what was the first brand that you guys got on board?
Funnily enough, we went live in 2017, and at that time, the new G-Wagon had launched. And so our anchor campaign was the Mercedes G-Wagon at the time it launched. Now, above and beyond being a very expensive piece of kit, we're in a region that is blessed with high disposable income, but is also a very hard to attain piece of prize as well. So we were lucky enough that we offered it, and it was at the time something that had a 2 or 3 year wait list and premiums and so on. So it helped us a lot in terms of when you say how do we market, sometimes our prizes do our marketing for us. When you have such a highly sought after car like the Mercedes G-Wagon at the time, that also brought in a very big crowd.
And do you guys primarily focus on different lifestyle products, or do you guys also open it up to something that's not available and something that's very hard to occupy, pre-book it? Is that also something that you guys offer?
We're extremely price agnostic. Mm-hmm. So whatever we find has a high level of applicability to the market, people want it in masses, we tend to identify what they are and offer them as prizes. As an example, when the new PlayStation launches, there's a big hype around that. We put PlayStations as prizes. The new Swatch Omega collaboration that happened, and then the new one that just happened now, we kind of try to get them before anyone can, so that it's not only that you're offering things that people sometimes can't necessarily immediately afford, but also is very hard to get even if you can afford it. In terms of prize categories, we try to cover everything sort of materialistic you can think of. So we have 5 price categories, which are cash and gold, jewelry and watches, electronics, lifestyle, and cars. And everything tangible and intangible that you can think of which can be offered as a price can fit within one of these categories.
Right. And when you look at these pricing options, do you look at something that an average person would be more likely, or is your target only HNIs or people that value these things, or is it like open to all? How does it?
We focus on one thing very strongly in Idealz, and that's inclusion. We try to have something for everyone. So our price points of participating in any of our raffles or buying any of our products start from as low as 1 dirham, which is affordable by anyone from blue collar to billionaire. And then as you cascade upwards, the nature of the prize obviously may change, but the highest price point we offer is about 950. And so that tends to have a wide level of inclusion across all genders, nationalities, income levels, disposable income levels, and what have you. And so we try to make it something that everyone can find something they like in.
What's been the biggest challenge that you face when you're running the company, which is very new for this region as well, considering that raffles and draws are not really looked at from a very positive way as such. It's not looked at that. What's the biggest challenge that you faced when you set up everything? Everything was ready to go. 2017, you're launching, you've got everything else. What is that one moment that you're like, this is difficult, how will I get around this?
So when you're starting a business, and especially a business like ours, which was unprecedented, not just regionally, but internationally, there is no business that put together a business model similar to ours until we did it. That would obviously come with a fair bit of resistance, struggles, challenges, and so forth. But being met with those things meant you're doing something right as well. You're doing something different. If it was a breeze, then you're doing something mainstream. The biggest challenge back then until today is customer acquisition and customer retention. It's not to say it's a challenge. We know how to do it, but doing it at scale and doing it consistently, and the game keeps changing on you, so you have to keep updating how you do it. That is a challenge that we faced back then and we still face today. Given our business model is a mix of online shopping and raffles touches on a very sensitive note. You go a bit too far to the right, you're seen as something. You go a bit too far to the left, no one understands it. So we had to consistently fly on a very sensitive altitude without altering our message too much that people don't understand what we do. That's always been a challenge as well. Regulation has helped us. Regulation is quite strong in the region. They're very binary. It's black and white. They know what is and what isn't allowed. And if you follow the rules, you're good.
It's all safe, yeah. Have you ever had those instances where a raffle winner is announced and it's like, oh, this is not fair practice?
The methodology of conducting a raffle is prescribed to us by the regulation. It must be physical ticket in a barrel. The tickets must mention certain data points about the customer. The person who does the draw, so we've never physically put our hand in the barrel, it's always the official from the government who visits us on the day of the draw, does the draw itself. The protocols of announcing the winner and then servicing that winner with his prize is also something that there are guidelines around. So it's a very controlled environment, so as to, number one, let the audience trust the private sector who conduct such activities, and number two, obviously reduce the number of complaints that the government would receive and they would have to act upon. So there is a very robust set of guidelines that we have to abide by. We've done about 6,000 odd campaigns to date, so we're quite versed in how to do them and the protocols around them. And it's been pretty much without a glitch since the day we operated. We knew that to operate this business, something we have to continuously do is follow the rules and engage in all of the activities that the government tells us to do within this space. And if we do so, the market would trust us. Any deviation from this may lead to repercussions on the trust level that we don't want to tamper with.
True. And did the business pivot at any point to something that you changed as per the market conditions, or has it always
It's a
been?
good question. It's a question I love answering. We have not made a single pivot since conceptualization.
Wow.
This is all premeditated execution. We came up with the idea. The idea was solid enough to pursue exactly how we conceptualized it. And till date, not a single pivot has been taken. We've not been met with a challenge. There may be the odd cosmetic things here and there, but mainstream business model level pivots, nothing. We're 100% intact with what we originally came up with and conceptualized. Even features that we've thought of 4 or 5 years ago are being released today as we conceptualized them back then.
So it's a very well thought, and with God's grace, it's been as per the plan that you've not had to pivot anything around as well.
It had to be. I risked my career on this business. So me leaving investment banking and jumping into the entrepreneurship or the startup scene, it had to be all risks calculated.
Was it scary getting into how did your family, how did your friends, react to? Because if, you called up one day and said like, hey Gaurav, I'm going to do this business. My first thing's going to be like any normal person's like, are you out of your mind? How did you, and so this is something that's very offbeat, you're not saying that, I'm going to start another bank. You're doing something that nobody has done before. Family, friends.
Very good question. I think the timing was right also for me. So I was engaged, not yet married, no children. I can prescribe to a certain risk. So anything when you're doing something new has a certain level of risk you should be able to accommodate. There were the obvious, some were naysayers, but the majority of the people I sounded the idea to when I was pursuing it had a very positive response to it. Now I understand there may have been some bias in you're jumping out of a career to do this, no one's going to quickly step all over it, but the majority of the people I sounded it out with received it quite well and were excited about it. And that was a good response and a good backing as well. My partners who are with me in the business and still are also gave me a vote of confidence of pursuing this. They knew I know exactly what I wanted to execute. They knew I'm capable of executing, and they believed in what they saw and went for it. And today, they're very happy with the outcome.
That's true. Very interesting. You mentioned G-Wagon was the first brand, the first car that you got on board as well. Now, you yourself are also a petrol head. You love cars. What was the first car that you got completely on your own, from scratch, paid for completely by you? What was the first car?
Myself personally, would have been my 458 Ferrari.
Okay.
I have a long history of I switch them very frequently, but if I roll back, the first notable one I got was the 458 Ferrari when it first came out.
And off camera we were just talking about it. None of your Ferraris are red. Everyone is black.
All black. Yeah. All my cars are black.
All the cars are black. Yeah. How did the passion for cars really develop? Because looking around over your office as well, there's just so many things that are related to cars.
Of course, yeah.
And such custom design pieces as well. Like just look at these exhaust kits and all that stuff. How did your passion for cars really start off with everything?
So I have two extreme petrol head uncles who infected me at a very young age. They always had very nice sports cars. I always saw them and had access to them, and was also eager to jump on a similar road of buying these beautiful pieces of equipment. And so it's in the blood.
Very controversial question. Would you rather have a Pista or a GT2 RS?
Pista.
Hands down.
Yeah.
And black.
Black.
And you're also, I think we were just speaking off camera as well, you're also one of those guys that really appreciate a fine car with a very low mileage and something that's really, well kept, well specced out as well. Mm. Does that also translate to who you are as a person, as a business perspective? Are you that person that wants like 100% perfection, or are you okay with if something's 80%, I'll pass? How does that translate?
I think naturally the traits you have in your personality are embedded into the business you're building. I don't think I can split my personality between the two. And so how I conduct myself and the things I like from a personal perspective are very much infused into the business. And that's reflected in some of the prizes that we offer as well. So true. I kind of had a litmus test on the prizes that we offer, that nothing I put on Idealz is not something I myself would have liked to win. Mm. And so that's the kind of small test we ensure we pass when we're launching something or something notable. And so a lot of the cars, we've put 130 cars on the road through Idealz. a lot of the cars that we've curated over the past 5 years have been hand selected by myself.
Oh, amazing. So you go through you spec it out as per your...
Funnest job in the world.
And, when you had your really hard and, when you run a business, it's very hard to get through. Was there any moments that you woke up one day and you were like, I should have not done this. I should go back to my 9 to 5. And what was that single most important motivation factor that sort of pushed you to be like, you know what, you're on the right track, keep going?
It's an interesting question, and it's a question I'll answer a bit differently. Were there those moments? No. I may have been in some rough patches in different periods of time, but something to say, I should have never done this, let me try to, or could it have been better if I didn't do? No. We say the word motivation. You need motivation to go to the gym. You need motivation to do the school run. You need motivation to do your homework. You don't need motivation to do something you love. This is my home. Do you need motivation to go home? I love coming here. And so I never needed motivation per se. Motivation is required when you're doing something you not necessarily want to do at a time you not necessarily want to do it. I wake up wanting to do this every day.
Interesting. Most common question that we get asked, especially like high performers like you or like, the super achievers, what time do you wake up in the morning?
I have 2 very young daughters, so they wake the entire house up at 6. So 6 is kind of the average timing. Sometimes it goes to a bit 6:30.
Okay.
So it usually starts there.
And what time do you go to bed?
About 3.
Wow.
Yeah, very short sleep.
So you sleep
I don't
only for
need
3
more.
hours?
Yeah.
I'm very intrigued.
Yeah.
How does 3 hours of sleep work?
During the week they accumulate, and then sometime in one weekend I will let out all the accrued sleep that's been sitting there.
Because a lot of people have like 8 hours sleep, 9 hours sleep, and that's when their productivity is at top, etc. So you don't believe in...
I not necessarily don't believe in it. I won't say it's the opposite either, but I get... the house goes quiet around 9 p.m. So between 9 p.m. and 3 a.m. is where I get my... Let me catch up on everything that has happened while I'm out and about. So reading through all my emails, reading through what's happened in the day, current events, so on and so forth. That happens in that period. And my head doesn't... It's overly stimulated, I guess. Doesn't really calm down till about 2, 3 a.m.
And something very interesting which you said, now I know that, which is very surprising for all our viewers, is Jad is not on social media.
I'm not on social media, yeah.
So what do you do? Like for normal people like us, bedtime is like you're scrolling through reels. But what do you do when you're not scrolling through reels? What's that one that takes up your time?
I am on LinkedIn, and it's quite a good content curator if the algorithm works right for you. And then the public domain has so much content to absorb and material to read. And so I'm surfing the open internet, not so much in the domain of where people ate and what people posted. And it never really gave interest to me. And so I never really had an Instagram account or a TikTok account or what have you.
That's a really interesting way of thinking as well. When it comes to social media, how much of an impact has the business had with social presence or with a lot of people talking about what Idealz is on social media, digital advertising, social media advertising, and versus, because sometimes you have a lot of big people with huge following that if they say one thing bad about the brand, it can really harm the brand. Mm-hmm. Is that something that you keep an eye on, and is that something that you think in a day-to-day brick and mortar business, does that really make an impact on the bottom line? So
we're a digital business, and therefore being present in all the channels that come, and even Threads, which is new, we jumped on the bandwagon very quickly, is essential. They are where 80% of our marketing dollars is spent, and a huge focus on our organic presence as well. They've become essential factors of any business. Some businesses that I've seen today have presence on social media but don't have a website. And so it's a must, and we must go with what the common market practices are.
And what's the future looking for with Idealz? Where do you see the company 5 years from now, 10 years from now?
So we've stabilized the business in terms of features, in terms of the user journey, in terms of all of the service vendors that we use. And the next phase of growth for us is international expansion. We can only, 30% of our audience today come from more than 180 countries around the world. The balance 70% comes from the UAE. And So we know that there is appetite for this type of activity, this type of business model in foreign markets. And we know that there will be a certain level of resistance if we don't go into these markets and localize it for those audiences. So my job over the course of the next 5 years is to scale the business, not just locally, but also internationally. And we've begun this journey and we've been quite active in that space. So we should see our brand popping up in different countries that we know we have an audience for.
Interesting. A lot of young people look up to you. You know, they want to be like you. They want to have the same passions. They want to be having the same motivation to drive a business like this. What's your key message to all the young entrepreneurs that are building out businesses now?
I hope that's the case. I hope I'm setting a good example. I have a thing with advice. I think advice has been overly commoditized in today's world. People use it as a commodity, no longer as a genuine piece of information. My advice is to not look at advice and follow it per se, because what worked for me may not work for you. And the last thing I would do is to give you advice based on my experience and then it failing for you. And so look at the formula you have, look at the ingredients you were given and make the best out of it. What I know is an essential ingredient in the space I'm in is perseverance. If you don't have it in you to see it through to the end, don't even start. It's not for the faint-hearted. It takes a lot of you. You are always wired in. About no less than 30% of my brain is always thinking about ideals. That's not an easy proposition for a lot of people. Some people like to cut off, unwind, de-stress, leave, move,
switch off,
breath of fresh air, come back. I'm more than happy to be thinking about this even in my sleep.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much, Jad, for spending so much time with us.
Not at all.
And we wish you all the very best with future expansions and everything else.
Thank you very much.
And hopefully we'll see you on Instagram sometime soon.
Hopefully we'll see you as a winner with us.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Jad.
Thank you.
Thank you.